me again. I'm staying right here because I do want to tell you a little bit more about the background of this conference and my personal ambitions and aspirations for this event, which are closely intertwined, of course, with the Düsseldorf Intermedia Art Institute. I personally came to Düsseldorf from Brussels in 2020 at the beginning of the lockdown, and for me it's the first institution that I get to run, and as a sound, culture, and technology studies scholar, I was very excited that I got to run an archive that is this really exciting combination of video art and video art history. So there's videos that since the 1980s very consciously document art, or they proclaim to be art. But aside from this video art history, there's also lots of other audiovisual documents that are much more difficult to categorize. They might be video essays or video magazines, they might be concert documentations, they might be music videos. So it really gives a sense of what video and VHS in particular could do in the 1970s, in the 1980s, and the 1990s. And to give you a sense of, if I could have my PowerPoint, because I do want to tell you a little bit about how this archive came about. Because our archive actually goes back to another organization, which is called 23/5. It is based in Cologne, pretty close to Düsseldorf, just across the Rhine River. 23/5 was founded by Axel Wirz and Ulrich Leisner in 1979 as a tape label and as a tape distributor. So they had a tiny little store, and they had these mail order catalogs that really looked more like zines with typewritten text and cut and pasted images and photocopied drawings and all that. And the cassettes that they distributed were all independent music, mostly punk, post-punk, new wave, industrial music. And for some time, the audio cassettes really were their core business, but they also started to kind of add other things like books and zines and comic books, and eventually also videos. And at first, those videos were mostly music videos. So they were concert documentations and demo videos by Susi, by Malaria, by Blondie, by Abwärts, to name just a few. And over time, the video program became more and more diverse, also with artists' videos and documentary videos and film on video. And all these kinds of things, and you can basically just not find on mainstream television or in regular video stores or in video rental stores. So they kind of developed this multimedia distribution program where the common denominator was mostly that the tapes all emerged from this independent underground scene. So I was very excited to find all of this in our archive. And since my background is more in sound art and electronic music and electroacoustic music, I kind of had to brush up my knowledge of punk history in particular. And I started streaming all of this new music, and I read all of these books about the histories of punk and new wave and industrial. And I have to say that I got a bit of a weird feeling about them, because I guess I was consulting them as history books, but what I found were narrations that seemed so invested in the production of myths and the making of legends and the building of a canon. And of course I was excited to see that the IMAI archive is full of these legends that the books have been building up, but there are also lots of bands that are not included in those anthologies and compendia, and I'm sure that there are many important bands that are missing from both the historical canon and the IMAI archive. The IMAI archive is a loud archive. It is loud, it is noisy, and this past year I've had a blast listening to it. But now I also want to learn to more actively listen to its silences. I want to attune my senses to more quiet sounds, to the whispering and the mumbling that is going on underneath the archive. I want to identify the sounds that are missing from the archive, and I want to amplify the voices that have been tuned out or even muted. I'm trying to approach these silences both by focusing my listening on the different layers of articulation that exist within the archive, and by expanding my listening, by lending an ear to the things that sound beyond the IMAI archive. I was fortunate that I did not have to listen in on the nuances within the archive by myself, but that I could do this together with Angelika Guszcz, who has put together the screening program that you can see downstairs. And I think for both of us, it has been really important to investigate the circumstances under which the videos have been included in the 235 program. So what were the aims of the two founders and what was important to them in selecting those works? But that's, of course, just one part of the story. The other part of the story is challenging our faculties by exposing them to new sounds, being inspired by other programming and specifically archiving strategies. That is why we have organized this conference, and why we have invited other archives as well. So the AFAS in Duisburg is here, which collects documents from the new social movements. Bildwechsel in Hamburg is here, which collects queer feminist videos. And the Gay Museum in Berlin is here, which collects all kinds of evidence from queer life. So I want to learn about the history of the IMAI archive, and I want to critically reflect on our archival methods, hoping to be sensitized by the experiences of the scholars and the initiatives that we have assembled here. And I hope that this can help me answer some of the questions that I've been asking myself. Questions such as what the value of an artistic canon is today. Should we be working to transform the canon, or should we be working to move beyond canon formation altogether? Also, how far can we go in rethinking and reconfiguring archival accessioning methods and accessioning principles until we really can no longer call ourselves an archive? And I also wonder about the institutional ideal of accessibility and whether just being accessible is really enough. Maybe as an archive, instead of aiming to be accessible, we should aim to be relevant, or we should aim to be useful, or we should aim to be involved and engaged. These are some of the questions that I've been asking myself ever since I came here, and I believe that together with my team I could at least narrow down some of these questions. At this point, we have more than 1,000 videos from our program available online for free on our own platform, which is called IMAI Play. Because on this platform, users can create their own playlists, and they can share the playlists, and they can also discuss the playlists online. And that is something where we're hoping that we can really create a possibility for users to not just view the videos, but to actually kind of use them for their own good goals. But this platform has only just been launched, so the word is still out, and I would love for you to give it a try. But the Intermedia Art Institute does not just consist of an archive. We also have a distribution program. And as you can probably imagine by now, this distribution program is pretty essential to IMAI as an institution. Because from the very beginning, the idea of 235 was to use the tapes, be they audio tapes or videotapes, as a means of communication and information. So 235 immediately saw this potential for circulation and exchange of audiovisual content, and they were constantly developing it further by founding a video magazine, for example. And up until today, we have this distribution program with more than 120 artists whose works we're hiring out for festivals, for exhibitions, for screenings. And there's this art historian and film studies scholar who's written a lot about distribution. Her name is Erika Balsam, and she has described how distribution participates in the generation of value and canon formation, as particular works may be made widely available to be seen and written about, while others remain inaccessible. Equally, distribution can be a site of advocacy and a way of remedying a lack of visibility. And I just think that she captures really well how distribution and circulation play such an important part in determining what videos become widely known and well-known, and she reminds us that with her distribution program, we have this chance to remedy a lack of visibility, as she calls it. And so far, IMAI has been doing some work to further developing its distribution program with younger generations of artists, but of course we could also rethink our distribution program historically. And in opening up this historical dimension, I think that it is not particularly surprising that, of course, our archive shapes our distribution program, but maybe we also have to see our distribution activities as a dimension of our archiving. And I believe that this is probably what Arjuna Padurai means when he warns us not to mistake the archive for a bureaucratic instrument or a conservation apparatus. This is a trap that we often fall into, especially with video, because it is so difficult to preserve. But Padurai encourages us to engage with the archive as an everyday tool. And of course, this is really what we're doing with our distribution program. This is our way of putting the archive into practice every single day. And I'm still thinking about the theoretical implications and the practical consequences of these rough ideas, but I just wanted to put them out here at the start of the conference. And while I'm contemplating all of this, I'm also racing against the clock. The fact that most of the IMAI archive is digitized does not mean that all of it is digitized. And the part that is not yet digitized concerns mostly the VHS tapes, which are especially fragile carrier media with a limited lifespan, so there's definitely some time pressure on this. The part that is not yet digitized also tends to concern video productions that are more inconspicuous and that they have not been produced by canonized artists. The copyright holders may be difficult to identify. We have very little information about the provenance of these tapes in our records. And the cases of the VHS tapes also tend to contain very little information, so we're working without any metadata. And at this point, also the funding schemes in Germany are really not making it easy to finance such a speculative, open-ended project. So I'm hoping that this conference will help me build my case quickly, and I look forward to discuss all of this some more with you the coming days. I'm so excited that you're all here. I really look forward to the discussions that we will be having on the stage and off the stage. And now I hope that you enjoy your evening.